Hello panel, welcome to the first day of National Conveyancing Week, the first National Conveyancing Week we've ever seen. Brainchild of Rob Hellstone and supported by Today's Media and David Opie. So I've done my homework and I've read all about National Conveyancing Week. And to give you a backdrop, the purpose of the week will be, amongst other things, this week to inform, educate, assist, motivate, reassure, and to help recruit much needed new entrants, as there's a bit of a conveyancing famine, as we've noticed, going on. We really seek to improve the profile of conveyancers and conveyancing and ensure fees are, it says here, set, but also kept to a really acceptable level. And I think as panel managers and law firms, it's part of our duty to do that. So as a panel, we'll do our introductions in a minute, but our contribution today and our task is to discuss managing panel managers to make the most of the relationship. And we've got people here that work with law firms and panel management businesses, and have done a bit of both. So to set the scene, and I didn't write this, but someone else did, love them or loathe them, you can't ignore them. They should have been a poet. And as market conditions tighten, are panel managers a sensible route to obtaining new work? A panel of frontline conveyancers and panel managers will discuss the pros and cons of panel management and why some law firms choose to work with panel managers and why some don't. So thank you very much to our esteemed panel for attending. I'm Karen Babbington. I'm a non-exec director of Today's Media, and I've been asked to chair. So thank you very much, David and Rob, for that. My background is that I've worked for 3 panel management companies over the years, including founding my own. And to bring you up to date, I'm a co-founder with Chris Harris of a tech company called Collaborative Conveyancing, which is tackling the conveyancing inquiries problem, and a market intelligence report service called Valify, which is yet to launch. So I thought we'd go to introductions, and I'll probably start with Joe. Thank you, Joe. So could you tell me a bit about yourself? It could be personal or professional, your role, your company, whether you're for or against panel management. And the question I don't know the answer to, but you know, someone else on this call may do, and I wish I did, was whether we know what proportion of cases flow through panel managers, you know, whether there's some facts out there or we could hazard a guess. I don't know what the answer is to that, but if we go to you, Joe, for introductions first.
Okay, yeah, well, I'm Joe, Operations Manager of the residential team at SAS Daniels. I've worked here for 17 years and have undertaken both private and panel type work during that time, and now managed that into the team. Whether I'm for or against, I think that there's a market for both, a very easy market for both. I think that we could all work, probably there's improvements to be made, isn't there? We could all work better together, but that's moving with the times. Certainly when I first started conveyancing, panels were not, this type of panel work wasn't really a thing. I know it's been around for a long time, but it wasn't as in the market as it is now. So yes, I think that we could tweak, as we could with lots of things, with our nonsense inquiries and, you know, all the other things in conveyancing, but there's definitely a market for both.
Thank you, Joe. Natalie, you're next on my screen, so could we go to Natalie?
Hello, how are we?
Good, thanks.
Hello to Natalie from sunny Scarborough, I believe.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it was sunny a moment ago. It's a bit of a difficult one to read at the moment, I think, isn't it? We don't know whether it's spring or not. Thank you so much for having me and for inviting me. I've had a strange entry into the legal industry in that it's not been very conventional. I have come through the financial services sector into legal at a later stage in my career. So I very much see things from a lender's lens, security, risk, registration, etc. And I think that's really helped us form the sort of firm that really does work well with panels. We understand that there's objectives on either side, and Inspire Legal work very much in the camp of working with panels because it's an easy win for us. It's all about relationships. We can measure work more easily. It's reflective of the team that we have and how much attention they give to those account managers, and ultimately clients benefit from it. So I'm very much for panel management, but I completely mirror as well what Joe has just alluded to, that not to the detriment of any organic business coming in. We should really be servicing anyone and everyone that we can in the best way.
Thank you, and you're not alone. You're in good company with financial services backgrounds, isn't she, Kevin?
Certainly is.
Should we hand over to you next?
Okay, I'm Kev. I'm CEO of Sort Group. And Sort Group, at very early days, was broker-based. Certainly for the first 5, maybe even up to 10 years, nearly all of our panel was made up of mortgage brokers, because that was my background from many years ago. Started in the industry in 1990 and spent probably 25 years as a broker. So understand that market far better than the agent side of it, and probably still more than the legal aspect. Although we have got Sort Legal as part of the group. I couldn't read a title, but what I do understand is all the problems that the industry's faced. Going back, we started in 2008 with Sort Refer, and the reason for that was because of the property crash, and I had to look at ways of supporting the family back in 2008, and Sort Refer was a really good idea. There was panel managers around at the time, weren't there, Karen?
There was a few.
And from my perspective, we was using e-conveyancer quite a lot, and whilst it was a good facilitator to get additional revenue from the conveyancing side, no disrespect to e-conveyancer because it's come on loads since, but the service that you got wasn't particularly great. The updates you got from the system, you'd end up with 15 emails in one go, and sometimes you'd have your client at risk because the case is exchanged and you hadn't been told about it. So the idea came off the back of that. What I did like about everything I did, it was transparent, and coming from the broker space, everything you had to do for your clients was transparent. So from my side, I'm obviously going to say I'm for panel management. What I'll add to that is that the panel manager has got to offer something to the conveyancing industry. And I'm hoping that this conversation and this hour will be not so much a debate about whether they should be there or not. It's how does everybody work together? What do we do about conveyancing to make it better? Because it has gone through peaks and troughs, and the perception of conveyancing at the minute isn't great. So start National Conveyancing Week, echo what Karen said, is what can we do to raise everybody's thoughts? Let's educate and get people more engaged. These people that are making money out of conveyancing from referrals, are they really earning it? What are they doing to set the expectations of the client? And are they there just to facilitate, or are they there to support? Because there's an awful lot that just want to beat the door and beat that conveyancer when it doesn't go right. So for me, this week is fabulous. I think there's so much we can do to set the record straight with conveyancing and set it on the right path. Karen, you mentioned getting new blood. It's vital to get new blood, because there's that many good people going out the top end that without replacing, where does this industry end up? And it is one that I'm super passionate about. having my own law firm and seeing the problems that you commonly encounter, yeah, I'm very interested to see what we've all got to say about it today. So yeah, I'm for panel, but they've got to offer more. And
thankfully, a number of those discussion points, although we've not colluded, they are on my agenda, so that's good news. It is about positive discussion. Paul, we had a chat before we started recording, but yeah, if you could introduce yourself, your role, background, that'd be great.
Yep. Paul Clark, partner in firm of Humble Clark, very niche bespoke conveyancing. I've gone through the rigmarole of the volume players. I was a panel manager myself for a very large estate agent, ran a panel of 12 of the biggest volume firms. I do understand panel management. I'm a for or against. I absolutely understand where it's come from and why it is a commercial reality. And Kevin, I agree. I think the problem is with panel management, it's the same problem that we conveyancers have. In other words, I've said for donkey's years, if we could just convince people what we do for the money we charge, everybody would be happy because that's what we do. Panel managers fall into that bracket, especially with the guys in the world solicitor firms who have never used and won't ever use panel managers. I don't. In my firm, it doesn't fit. That's not to say I'm against panel managers. Certainly I'm not. I understand commercially why panel management is a necessity, especially for some large estate agents and some of the small ones. But yeah, my background, I've been in an estate agent, but always used to shout, I'm not an estate agent. I've got every badge that you'd want. I qualified as a legal executive far too many years ago to mention. Then I did my CLC course, didn't bother with the qualification, then went on to get a law degree, and then went back to the CLC. So that's where I sit at the moment. But yes, we get an awful lot of calls from panel managers asking to go on the panels purely because of the service. My view is I don't want too much in the way of volume, therefore, because it would affect my service.
Brilliant. Yeah, so you've done a number of different roles within the property industry as well, which is always really interesting, I think. And last but not least, Emma, welcome.
Oh, yes. Hello. Thank you. So my role, I work at a company called Moving Legal, panel manager. I'm the key relationships director. Something actually Kevin said that was interesting when he did his introduction. One of the key things we believe in is you do have to provide something different. Every business does, whether you're a solicitor, you're a panel manager. You do have to make yourself stand out from the crowd, but also invest in who you're working with. We are very passionate in educating our clients, particularly to try and help our solicitors that are on the panel. Kevin said, do they earn their money with the referral fee they get? The broker and the estate agent is always going to be that first point of contact for the client. So we like to try and equip them that they don't have to necessarily pick up the phone straight to the lawyer to ask what could be a really simple, basic question that they could actually feel confident to look on the portal and actually answer the question themselves. So we offer all of our clients training from what happens from the moment they do a quote on the system right until the client gets the keys, with all the quirks in between, the delays, the difficulties, what's happening in the industry at the moment. Like you say, I believe it's over 25% of the industry left in 2021, yet the work increased probably by that amount also with the stamp duty holiday. So you've lost staff, and they tend to be losing the higher quality staff, but then you get all of this work in and you're not replacing it. So I think for us, I'm pro panel. I've done this job for 22 years now, and I've worked on both sides. I've worked for standalone law firms that haven't used panels. I've worked for standalone law firms that have used panels, and now I'm working with a panel. I totally agree with Joe. I think there's a place here for everyone to suit every kind of customer and client that you've got. And then it's just about the level of support you then offer to get that client through into the house in as much ease as possible, but also actually equipping our clients to actually be able to be quite self-sufficient themselves, that they understand what's going on and they're able to actually support and look after their clients, but also feeling like they're part of the process as well.
Thank you. And yeah, I think most of the attendees will be horrified to hear that when I first worked for a panel management company. The only tech we had was a telephone and a fax machine, and that's how we received our instructions. So from lenders and mortgage brokers and things like, yeah, it is wow, Natalie. It's unbelievable now, isn't it? I remember when the Abbey National instructions came through, 90 at a time, all on one fax machine. That was fun. So should we get stuck in? And you've already, Kevin and Emma have alluded to this question about what panel management brings to the conveyancing sector. Both in terms of the customer, it might be in terms of tech, it could be in terms of protection, anti-fraud, education. You've already mentioned as well, Emma. What do we bring to the sector as a whole as panel managers? I use the royal we on that. Who would like to go first? I think Kevin's coming off mute.
Yeah, from my side, it's support. From day one with us guys, we've never been to a law firm and said you have to do this, you have to do that. We've never stamped our feet if something goes wrong. There's always going to be instances with conveyancing where something happens and you have an unhappy client. So I think from our side is we've tried to look at it from both sides, because the broker's recommending at the end of the day. It's the broker's. We have got to keep the broker happy because he's making the recommendation. It isn't just for him. It's not just a conveyancing. It's mortgage. It's the life cover. It's all the ancillaries that goes with it. And if the conveyancing goes wrong, then there's a good chance he'll lose all the other bit. So he has got a vested interest. But just because he shouts, you can't then just go to the law firm and say, you've done this, you've done that. It's really investigating why and working with both parties to make sure that you get a good satisfactory outcome for all. So customer service for us from our side is vital. We try and be the link between the two and not just jump all over a law firm, support them and help. And really readjust the expectations when things do go wrong. So I don't know. I think the biggest thing for me is the support. The education does come with it, but that is going to be a forever. If you think about what conveyancing is now to what it was in 2008, and then go back even further, and I'm daft enough and old enough to have bought houses in the 90s, and it took 4 weeks. You can't do a conveyance in 4 weeks anymore because as Natalie said, the risk from the lender's perspective, everything now falls onto the conveyancer, and I don't think that's appreciated across the industry anywhere near enough. And
I think with National Conveyancing Week, this is about highlighting it, isn't it, and working better together as a sector. But you've just touched on one of my key questions in that collaboration with mortgage brokers in your case, and it might be estate agents or lenders with another, can it help speed up transaction times? Because obviously that's one of our biggest challenges of the sector, isn't it? And certainly for conveyancers, the longer that case stays on your desk, so to speak, it just means that your pipeline's much bigger. And I know Joe's nodding at that as well, but can panel managers actually help cut down transaction times?
Are you asking me that, or?
Yeah, I am. Yeah.
I mean, I think you can help. You can't dictate. We have an update process within the system that it will flag to the conveyancing firm they've not updated the case within a certain amount of time. Now on a remortgage, that can be pointless because you could be months off and you can be ready months ahead. But on the transactional case, then the fact the case hasn't been updated or it's the same update for 3 or 4 weeks, then it's a little reminder that actually you can escalate a case and get somebody at the firm to just check into it. You've mentioned just about pipelines, and I think for me, this is the biggest problem. We set Sort Legal up in 2017, I think it was, 17. And the business plan was built around a 12-week turnaround. So, that at the time was the average. And then COVID came along and shoved those averages up to 20 weeks or more. So the simple maths, if you've got a fee earner that's got 60 cases and is going to complete 20 a month, that 60, if it's going to 5 month turnaround rather than 3 months, he's got to have a caseload of 100. What's going to happen to the service when you've got 100 cases to look after rather than 60? So, yes, you can do things to help, but more is, I'm more interested in what can we do to help up front. What is there nowadays with all the tools you've got, with all the data that you've got? There's that much technology, there's that much data. What can be done to get all this information in sooner so that you get the process underway, faster, so you get it underway right on day one, but then you're also getting information into the firm quicker, so they can at least start doing a load of the work before it's too long into it.
Yeah, and I think we'll tackle upfront information. We'll come to that. That's certainly on my agenda. Joe, you're nodding. What can panel managers do to help?
I think there's a complete joined up approach to be had here. Everything's going to start somewhere, whether it's with an agent through to an introducer, through to a conveyancer, whatever that is. It's about everybody joining up. And that's almost where your private versus panel kicks in for me. It should all be the same process with somebody in the middle that's going to assist the process. So, onboarding, there's a lot more that we could do, as you said, we'll come to it later, to help that transaction come off the ground. And in doing that, we've all got to work together. We've all got to have a nice, clean process of very clear communication. And there are portals that we can update, and I agree, there's data we can access to make that happen, but what it comes down to is the good old-fashioned communication. However that is done, it can be a telephone call, an email, updating a portal. It doesn't really matter, as long as everybody is agreeable at the point of taking on a case that this is the agreement we have between, let's say, the three of us, and this is how we communicate. I know that largely that is going to be through a portal, and that's okay. And everybody's got to have the same responsibility to update that. It's got to be updated by everybody to make it work.
Great. And Natalie, you mentioned that panel managers have helped you. So, how have they assisted you in terms of either getting cases through or in other ways?
They have. But it's a trust exercise, isn't it? Because until you put those cases through and evidence that you are able to deliver the service that you profess to be able to do, as Kevin alluded to, the panel managers are risking their relationships with their brokers that they've invested time in on you. So there is a real risk situation for everybody. Really putting faith in making sure people do what they say they're going to do. And I think that it is as basic as that. Even with updates are great, communication's great. And we use Moving Legal, for example. We work with Emma, and we're lucky enough to have a very strong relationship with them, but we do so on a very mutual basis. So, for example, the conversation began as, we can refer you business, this is our referral fee. Well, that's a very basic level. And then it's built onto, okay, well, in a more critical way, how can we make it better and tackle some of the problems perhaps Moving Legal or other panel managers and panels have had? Well, we know that communication is key, and Joe's already alluded to the fact that there's portals or there's emails or there's calls. So many different methods of communication. So agree on one and stick to it, and make sure everyone's sticking to that one method. An example of which is, I don't want to be updating a portal and my case management system and putting file notes on and talking to my legal assistant about what I've done in case someone rings. We've had to do that in the past, and it's a cross we all bear, first world problems and all that. But ultimately, there is an easier way and there's a smarter way, but it requires a bit of investment on both parts. And what we've done is select and change our tech stack in the firm to afford an open API so that it plugs in to these panel updates. So our panel system the panel managers speaks to our case management. We're only ever updating one thing. So whenever we update something, our panel guys get an update vis-a-vis the client and broker. And instead of it being, you didn't update the panel, you didn't update the portal, that's a frustration we can hear a few times before it just gets annoying, and then obviously the trust falls away. Well, we can just remove that burden by being a bit smarter with the tech that we use, because it's completely achievable. A little bit of expense on the law firm's part, but long-term investment, you're going to get more business from it. So yes, panels have helped us, of course, especially as a new firm. We've not been trading 3 years yet. We launched in COVID. So we have always approached everything from a position of, if the high street never opened again, would we be able to run a business? And we just never went back when the world opened up again. So we're very much, solely digital, which has helped. It changes our target market, because for those clients who don't want to check a portal and don't want an email and want to sit and have a cup of tea, there's a place for clients like that. But at the present moment, that wouldn't fit predominantly within our firm. We would help those clients, of course, but there's a very specific market that we're aiming for, and it's the ones that are the least patient, instant gratification, want to complete from their sofa, biometric ID, and that's what we've shaped everything around. But if we can share that process with whoever else we're working with, so KYC, is it FCA compliant, sharing that one onboarding process, which I know is a point that you're going to bring up later. There's just so many key things we can do with a little bit of sacrifice of time now that's going to make everybody happier. And it shows willing. So it shouldn't all be on the panels to give something to us. I think we need to give a little bit back too. That's been our approach.
Yeah, and I'm not sure whether this one is for you or Emma then, but communication's key, isn't it? But it's about the behaviour of everyone else in the sector. So, Kevin's touched on mortgage brokers, but obviously there's estate agents, that some people's entire roles within estate agents, to follow their sell through. So Emma, have you, by the fact that you've got law firms updating the portal on time, managed to change estate agents' behaviour, for example, or mortgage brokers, in that they come to your system first before making that call to Natalie or Paul or Joe?
With our brokers, certainly, we offer a lot of support to our brokers from day one. Our role is, once that case is instructed, is to get that case to completion with the broker by working with the law firm to get it through as smoothly as we can. So we almost see ourselves as an addition to that broker's office, almost like part of their admin team or their progression team to actually put the case through. So our brokers will go on, and our estate agent clients that we have, they will go on the portal to look for the update. And that's where the education piece comes in as well, because they will go on to see the update, and they understand what the solicitor's putting. Sometimes I think there's a habit that a certain language can be used by solicitors that the broker might not quite understand, or a terminology is used. So it is sort of about educating that they understand what the update is. For example, the biggest hurdle, I guess, is when it gets to inquiries, and straight away the estate agent's told inquiries have been sent back. Okay, well, how many inquiries did you ask? 40. How many of those have been answered? 20. Okay, so inquiries aren't back then. Technically, there are still inquiries, and it could be a leasehold property. So it is about the communication. Not everything always goes perfect. Things can go wrong. It is a stressful process. The market has changed. We'd like to think we've got a good relationship with our lawyers, such as Natalie. We don't jump up and down if we think something may have gone wrong. More often than not, our sales director uses the phrase all the time, there's always devil in the detail. Once you delve down into what's happening with the case, you then find out what's actually happened, and often it's either a misunderstanding, a not understanding of what's going on in the process, or sometimes they just don't like what they've been told. They've not got the answer they can move in tomorrow, and they only instructed it, say, a week ago. So it is having that, but yeah, our brokers are confident to go onto the portal, to look at it, to read, to understand where we are with the transaction. And we do offer a lot of support. We do see the cases through to completion, because that's when everybody gets paid, our solicitor, ourselves, the client gets their property. As Kevin rightly said, the conveyance isn't just that one element of this for the broker. There's everything else that's attached to that case that is one whole product and for him with the client. So yeah, I would say communication is definitely key, but the portal, they will go there as a key reference before going to the solicitor.
And Paul, I'm going to come to you because you've been estate agent, panel manager and law firm.
Yeah.
Give us some wise words on this.
Well, it all sounds lovely and warm and fuzzy. We're all saying the right things about the right. We all know what is going to get things done, but that's never changed. I think you've got to appreciate that there are panel managers out there who aren't singing. Actually, sorry, they will. They promise exactly what you're all promising now, but there isn't a delivery there. There isn't a joined up process. They are just looking at this as a volume commercial gain for them. I'll give you for instance, we were contacted very recently by a firm who said to me, they're an online estate agency panel manager. And they said, we have had such glowing references about your firm, and I've got no doubt that they've said this to every other firm that they've rang who they don't know and haven't heard of. And we'd like you on the panel. And I, straight away, because I understand the model, I understand why I was ringing, I said, we will not pay you a referral fee. But you've got to, he said. I said, no. I says, you've made us an offer, I'm happy enough, but no. He says, if that means I'm not coming on your panel, that's fine. And he said, but you have to, everybody pays a referral fee. I don't want to get into the referral fee discussion now. But when he told us the referral fee was £525 and that they dictate the fee structure, at that point, I actually asked him one question, which he waffled for about 10 minutes. I can talk for England, he was worse. I asked him what he added for that £525. Well, we send you the work. No, what do you add? Kevin, you're shaking your head, you're dead right. That is the perception, and perception becomes reality. A guy who you've probably, some of you will have come across, a guy called Hatch, Achilles Hatchesif, one of the best IT guys who understands conveyancing, and he talks about widgets. He invented the word factory conveyancers. He meant it as a compliment. Let's make this a factory. It's a commoditized process. It was taken and twisted back in the early 2000s. But he said at one meeting we were at, he says, yeah, you're all promising the same thing, but conveyancing is a very cottage industry. What he meant was it's fragmented to the point where at the time he brought up something. He says, Harry Hill, Countrywide, they have the biggest conveyancing operation in this country at the time. He says, and they account for less than 3% of everything that went through the land registry last year. Of the other conveyancing association firms, of which I've worked at least two of them and worked with the others, they make up less than 7% of the entire conveyancing transactions that went up last year. And they are massive, they are volume. So the rest is all split amongst what my firm is now, very small, bespoke firms sitting in little villages out in the sticks. Those guys have got, they're what I referred to before, the dyed-in-the-wool solicitors firms, who will see the panel managers as the dirty man in the middle who is actually just taking money out of this. The problem that you've got, it's the same problem that we conveyancers have, is convincing not just the public, but also the industry, the conveyancing industry, what is it you add. And as I say, this is all lovely and warm and fuzzy. I know what panel managers do. I've done it myself. I've been there. It's almost impossible to get across that threshold of, well, we can work together. And I've seen it work. I've seen it be absolutely abhorrent. And again, I'll say now, I don't use panel managers. I probably never will. Am I anti-panel management? No, at all. I understand the commercial reality that they're there. And in the market, Kevin said before, the market has changed massively. In the market that we have now, there is an absolute need in most cases, certainly from an estate perspective, for panel managers, and estate agents run the show to an extent.
And your point's very valid in that there's all shapes and sizes and forms of panel managers and operating in very different spaces and markets as well, isn't there?
Yeah.
Shall we Should we talk about upfront information? Because I can see you're all dying to do it. And if we were all sitting on the stage, I could hand over a mic to someone, but I haven't got one, and you wouldn't reach it without any some clever format we'd organised before. So who would like to talk about upfront information for me? I mean, I went to quite a few of my friends in the industry before this and asked questions, and this was a very common one that they were interested in hearing from everyone on. Kevin, you brought up the subject originally, so sorry, I'm going to pick on you again first.
No, no worries. I mean, do you want to define upfront information?
Will you define it for me?
Are you talking about the protocol forms, the questionnaire, the basic stuff?
We can talk about it all.
Because as you know, there's a whole host of providers out there now that will help with the onboarding of a case, and that's brilliant because you can get all the information from the estate agent's point of view. List a house, and the day that the offer comes in that they accept, you can draft contract ready to go over. So you can get the TA forms, you can get the title documents, etc. But is that only doing part of the job? Is that a real benefit of upfront information? Well, from my perspective, absolutely it is, because typically, without that, you're looking at maybe 3-4 weeks to get the client to engage and get all the information, get the ID, etc. back. So there's certainly a place for that, but it's more. We joined the Conveyancing Information Executive last year to look at really what upfront information you can get, and there's more coming. Climate change is going to impact in terms of information, and at the conference there they're giving you all this data about flood risk, etc. From an insurer's point of view, from a lender's point of view. And it's really then who's that going to fall to tell the client about it, and the conception there was that it really needs to be the law firm when they're reporting on the title. Well, surely that's ridiculous. Do you want to find out 7-8 weeks down the line that the house you're going to buy is that you've probably already come emotionally attached to is potentially going to flood in 30 years? It might not affect you because you're only going to live there 10-15 years or whatever, but is it then going to impact your ability to sell it? And I know I'm speaking from fact. My son lives on a floodplain. There was a kid where his house is now was 2 meters underwater regularly, and yes, they've got defences there to stop it. But as climate change gets worse and water flow gets higher, is it going to get flooded? Doesn't impact him right now. And he wasn't bothered when he bought it, but he might be bothered in 5 years' time when he can't sell it, if he can't sell it. I mean, they'll do other things because you're talking about thousands of houses. They will defend it. But it really, for me, is that sort of upfront information, is what is that you can give to the client at point of sale. So, on the estate agent's details, it's going to make you really, I want to buy that house or I don't. So,
well, talking to someone who resides in Ironbridge, I know a little bit about flooding, and I spend most of my time not being able to get into Wales because the McCuncliffe Bridge floods as well. So
I know now, isn't it? I hear it was flooded this morning. Is it the Dovey Bridge?
Yes, absolutely. I'll be trying to drive over there later. But so I know a little bit about flooding. I know exactly what you're saying. I mean, as an aside, I saw that on the news this morning about well-being and climate, and of course it's been in the news about air pollution and things as well, hasn't it? Joe, you're smiling with some of Kevin's comments.
I was. It brought back memories of home information packs. I think, I agree with everything that you've said. In an ideal world, if we could rewrite the process, I think it would be great if there was a much improved version of the HIPS, in that you could give a buyer an auction pack, I suppose, isn't it? It's not dissimilar. You're giving them that information at the onset, but that's got to be in an advisory basis. They've got to know where they're going with that information, the information within it being relevant. in terms of us all joining together, how that would fit, I'm not sure. But yeah, you know, you don't want to be advising your client when they're just about to exchange contracts that they are buying on a floodplain. But would you be providing a good service if you were doing that anyway? Probably not. You know, you would know about that early on, and you would hopefully advise on that earlier on. In terms of onboarding, again, I agree with everything you're saying. There's providers on the market that take a lot of that off conveyancers now to get the TA forms completed. You know, we're a lot more electronic, aren't we, than we were even 5 years ago, I think, 10 years ago, most definitely. And all of that helps us step forward in the right direction. It's how we could all join up to make that a slicker process, as we've all said, to improve on the communication, to improve on the output, because actually what everybody wants is to get from start to finish as quickly and as efficiently as possible.
Paul?
Well, I'll put my hat straight in the ring here and say I was absolutely pro home information packs. I had no qualms about it. I was involved since 1996 all the way through to their implementation in 2006-07. We had some empirical data from one of the biggest estate agents in this country that they did work. They cut exchange times down, but all that aside, they went. They went for the reason that we're actually talking about. They went because the biggest stakeholders and the biggest anti-lobbyists were the estate agents world, because they don't want people to have upfront information. They don't want, I mean, everybody's seeing the flowery estate agents speak, and I'm not having a pop at estate agents here. Everybody's seeing estate agents speak that was cut to the bone and said, you cannot say this is in the most desirable location in the country. It's in, you know, because it's not, that's not objective. They will not want to put in there, this is in a floodplain. They will not want to put in there. They know they're going to find out about it, but Kevin made the point. You get to a point where you're so emotionally invested in a property, you don't want to pull out because it's going to rain next month or in 20 years' time. And that's the problem. There's nothing wrong with HIPs. There never was. In fact, the only thing wrong with them was they didn't have enough detail. And Joe, I'll go back to the point you made. It's great having all this information. I think an auction pack is an absolute waste of time, because the people who are reading it look at it and go, lovely, where's the house? Where's the pile of bricks? I've done work on looking at auction packs ahead of an auction, and the inquiries I've raised, I've said, look, these need sorting before you go ahead. That's brilliant. I think what the HIP was missing, and what is all this whole debate about upfront information, you almost need a rubber stamp from somebody, and dare I say it, it's almost got to be a lawyer, because we've got the indemnity insurance. It's almost got to be a rubber stamp to say this house is sellable. Any lender would accept it. There are some physical quirks, whatever, I've been through the property. You almost need to do your job ahead of the game. We do that for estate agents in where I am. We call it a pre-sales pack. I literally act as a buyer's lawyer, examine everything, property information form. We don't have searches, but I examine everything and come up with, these are the issues you need to resolve before you take it to market. And in those cases, 9 out of 10 go through. Like the estate agents love it. They can't use it because they're beholden to their own internal, not external panel managers, but their own internal panels that they have to use, who won't do this for them. So the upfront information is absolute. It will be a panacea, but we're never going to get there because there are too many people frightened of losing their foothold. You panel managers, if you can get in there and say, great, we'll do all the onboarding, but also collect this information as well, fantastic. Because if you can offload that onto a conveyancer who goes, oh, lovely, thank you very much, tick the box, you're in, and you'll get things through much, much quicker. I'm just not sure who is the stakeholder who's going to get there. Lawyers aren't. Honestly, we're useless at actually marketing, at getting our head around, at getting together. As I say, 97% of this marketplace is fragmented, and we don't talk to each other. I try in this area, people don't want to know, you know, is that not a monopoly? I'm not talking about money, I'm talking about processes. We are useless, which is why estate agents did what they did to us, actually, what created the panel manager role. We are useless. We should have done this ourselves. We didn't. I've worked in some firms who tried to do it, failed because they were run by lawyers with a law degree, and that's, well, we can do everything, can't we? No, you can't. Employ somebody to do it. So yes, upfront information is the thing that we need to be looking at, and whoever drives that, if it ever comes through, will win the market.
So, question from Paul to you, Emma. Are you going to be able to get hold of this upfront information to be able to pass it on to Natalie and other law firms? Hopefully you can hear me. I think you've had a few technical
Can I interject
difficulties.
there? Just, I think it's really interesting to hear the different points of views, and I don't think any one person is incorrect in my view. I think everyone's got really valid points. But I think in the interests of not tarring everyone with the same brush, and I absolutely am not suggesting that you are, Paul, in any way, shape or form, the solicitors, lawyers, conveyancers, legal executives have had a tough run in terms of what their public perception is. So, you know, whether it be accurate or not, bloody lawyers, you know, we charge money. What do we actually do? Nobody knows. It's a mystery. No one explains. And the reality is nobody knows, because we perhaps don't communicate just how much of a burden we are sitting with for X amount of years when we do that transaction. And that is completely different to the agent, and it is completely different to the panel manager, and arguably even to the broker. And I've said on a number of occasions when we've got clients who are pushing or got agents screaming, or, you know, and it doesn't happen very often, they're not all animals, but, you know, when they are screaming down the phone saying, we need to get this exchange, we've got this outstanding inquiry. Now, if I put this through, you're all going to stop screaming at me. That's perfectly fine. Client will be happy. There will be no complaint, etc., etc. But if anything goes wrong, none of you will be getting sued. I will be getting sued. You will be sat in your home and in your garden and getting a letter every now and again. It will be me that is dealing with that. So once I've explained that, there is sometimes this air of, you know, rational thought that, right, okay, I get it now. Sometimes I genuinely just don't believe the clients are aware as to what burden we actually carry on going, because they don't have to be. It's not their problem. And I think in terms of working with agents and solicitors, not all solicitors are the same. You know, some of them are incredibly empathetic and a very, you know, very tactile approach to all of their clients, very caring. Equally, some agents are very much like that. I have had a dreadful experience with one particular agent this week who I would even go as far as to say made my client incredibly distressed, because they knew they couldn't penetrate me through the phone and go, right, you need this, 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 and this. Because I put a boundary there, they deflected onto the client who wasn't as clear. And it was a case of us kind of standing and protecting our client, saying, come to me about this, because actually my client's very distressed. You're asking her all sorts of questions she doesn't know answers to. So there are bad and good ways of working, I think, in every area of a conveyancing transaction, which is why it's so valuable when you do meet, you know, the term dream team is overused, but when you meet your dream team where you're like, they get me, they get my sense of humour, they know I'm going to deliver, I know they're going to deliver, it's invaluable. And it, you know, having only been kind of 3 years into this firm trading, we're only just now finding our feet with who we want to work with. Because when you first start out, it's work with everyone, let's try everything. And we've done the same with panels. We've been, you know, we've been sold an idea and sold a complete revenue stream. This will be amazing, blah, blah, blah. You'll have exclusivity, everything, all the buzzwords chucked into it. And when we've really drilled it down and done the numbers, it's not been viable for us in any way, shape or form. And, you know, we've cut it off immediately and said, you know, thank you very much, stayed on good terms, but no, thank you, it's not for us. And we're fortunate that that's opened the doors for other people that we now work with where it fits.
And you are right. It's a mystified service to the client, isn't it? You have to be a very good communicator to explain that, what conveyancers actually do. I mean, it's the hub of whether a transaction's going to go through or not. Emma, I did come to you, but your tech was struggling, so I don't know whether it's working now. I can just ask you the same question of, are you going to be able to get this upfront information to pass on to law firms like Natalie?
Hello.
We can't hear you.
Oh, there we go. I think I can lip read slightly. I haven't got sound for all of you, so I don't know whether you were asking me then or not, Karen. But if we're still talking about the upfront information, Can I get a thumb up? Yeah, okay, that's fine. I did manage to catch what Paul began to say regarding the home information packs. I'm very much with him on that. I was very pro having home information packs to actually have all that information up front. I like to sort of refer it to, you have an MOT for your car, you get your certificate, you have your service history for your car. When you go to sell your car, you've got all that information ready to pass on. Here's my car ready to sell, here's all the history, here's everything that's happened to it, etc. Copy of my insurance so you can see sort of where I'm at. I really think we should have that for the home, which in essence was the home information pack, that somebody comes to view my property, they can either get it from the agent or I can have it if I'm showing them round, and I hand them, here's my fencer certificate, here's the recent gas and boiler, here's the planning permission that I've got because I might have had my loft done or planning permission rejection. So I really think we need a service book. Whether they ever call it a home information pack, I think that name's probably dead in the water and completely gone. People just cringe when they sort of hear it, but we need to have this information up front, and together with identity for clients. Identity still seems to cause such an issue that everybody wants it, whether it's the agent needs it, the broker needs it, the lender needs it, the solicitor needs it. The client repeats this process over and over, and I know it's something the industry is working hard to change. I've sampled a couple of systems myself. If I go on once to do my identity and my money laundering, and then I just allow access to everybody that needs a copy, whether it be the broker, the estate agent, the solicitor, we could make things a lot easier for ourselves. I think the problem we've always had as an industry, we're all wanting to reach the same destination. We're all on the same train wanting to get to that destination, but some of us are on a super fast electric quick train, some of us are on a little steam engine that's going a bit slower. We all want to get to this point, but as an industry, it's quite fractured, and we're not all quite getting there at the same point in the same time. So I don't think there's a desire for us not to be a quicker, more effective industry. I think there's just a lot of cogs in the wheel that have really got to all push together to work to get to that point.
And I agree with you. There's been massive progress on NID. I know there's a lot more to come, but I've witnessed it over the years, and it's very different from posting your passport and hoping that it'll come back in time for your holiday. But again, that's me relating to my age. I guess from my point of view, very pro panel management. It won't be a surprise. I guess working in wills and probate sector for the last 7 or so years, not as a panel manager, I've really seen what panel management has done for conveyancing, in that I think it's driven management information, commercialisation, it's balanced out volumes, and it's not for now. I'd love to ask you this question, but it's National Conveyancing Week, so I'm not going on to my other pet subject, wills and probate, but I do wonder whether other legal sectors would really benefit from having some strong panel management within it. So what's the future? An hour seems to be racing by. What's the future for panel management? Will it continue to exist? Question from me, from attending the Conveyancing Association, where there were law firms on stage talking about multi-million investment they were making into their law firms. Will it be the panel managers with the deepest pockets that can invest in the tech and other ability that will win? What does everyone think? What does everyone think about the future of panel management? And this is our last question before we actually celebrate National Conveyancing Week and talk to our comrades and colleagues about what you do for us. So yeah, panel management. And I'm going to go around my screen in order. So Natalie, you're first.
Is in technology, but I think that can only be the case if there's equal investment in education as well. It was interesting at the beginning of the conversation, we were talking about, or Kevin more particularly was talking about some really good, strong conveyancers leaving the industry. And we've got, the term new blood has been used. And ultimately, we're trying to create an industry where we have multi-skilled individuals, not that can only just apply the law or know the conveyancing protocol or are good at sales or are good at pacifying clients, but also IT literate, almost IT pioneering individuals who can critically analyse a process and go, that there's a better way of doing that. I just need somebody to create it. It doesn't always cost a lot of money. If you have a decent enough case management system and a really good relationship with the owners of said system, you can, from the outset, create what you believe is going to be the best system for the client experience. So to answer your question, I think firms need to take more responsibility as to their internal processes and how that collaborates with external and third parties, such as panel systems, websites, client onboarding, whatever your AML system is. And if they fail to do so, it's always going to be 10 or 15 steps behind everybody else. So it's investment in tech and it's education on how to use it.
Yeah, and you're right. I call it a conveyancer famine because people have left the industry for all the reasons we know. It's difficult to attract new entrants, but a very experienced conveyancer spoke to me about a missing cog, which I hadn't appreciated, which is getting trainees through to being fully fledged conveyancers without being put off, quite honestly, during that journey. So yeah, I hear you. Jo, you're next on my screen.
Yes, I think there's a future. I think that there's a future, though, for everything. You will still have people that don't want to use a panel manager in the middle because they've used you for years, because their parents have used you, because you're high street, lots and lots of different reasons. But as I started out saying, I think that there is a market for both. I agree with everything you said. Technology is the future. Particularly in terms of panel management and indeed everything that we've talked about. We've got to move forward, we've got to work together, we've got to improve some of the process, haven't we? And that's for both, if you like, both types of work.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a common theme, isn't it? Paul?
Future for panel managers, absolutely. There's got to be, because there's an industry base now on those firms that need a panel manager. They can't do it themselves. They want to be in there and get the volumes. So yes, there'll always be an industry for panel managers. I think the interesting part is what panel managers, how they take it to the next level. Like, do they get involved in that, producing upfront information? Yes, there's a lot of panel managers are seeing the need to offer the ID and AML process, which we wouldn't have seen 5 years ago. And that is now, what's that going to do with the panel manager? Well, it's an added value that can be added in. There's an awful lot of that going on, and it's the innovators who will get forward. And as I said before, and Natalie, I wasn't having a pop at any solicitors. I'm in that arena. It is a case of lawyers generally, and I'm talking about that massive percentage of the small guys, they're useless at this. They're useless at looking at the commercial perspective. They have buried their heads in the sand. And they do hope that, Jimmy's always used us because his mum and dad did. Well, no, Jimmy's going to be attracted by somebody else who offers something else, who offers more, 21st century conveyancing. There's an area for the whole lot. I genuinely think that those small firms they'll won't disappear ever, but they will be minimalised because they won't jump into the 21st or the 22nd century. Those that will be driven by commercial realities, and honestly, that's where the panel manager sits. That's where, because you're looking out, you're hungry for it. Lawyers aren't; they're sitting waiting for it to come in. And when I say lawyers, I mean those that are the dyed-in-the-wool. I've worked with plenty of them. I had one as a partner till not long ago. He retired about 4 years ago, and he was always going on about the good old days. Sorry, they've gone. So yes, there's got to be panel managers, most estate agents, a lot of lawyers. I suspect every lawyer in this group is the same. You're looking at tomorrow, not yesterday, and that's where the wins will be. So yes, there will always be, I think, a growing market for panel managers.
Thank you. Well, this is good news, isn't it, Kevin? You're next on my screen, and then we'll come to Emma last but not least.
Yeah, it really goes back to what I said right at the start. Yes, there is a place for panel managers, and I do think there always will be. IT, I think we all agree IT's got a place. I think the thing we're missing, and I've got up and said this before, is you look at the last 3 years of what's gone on with conveyancing. You ask the question why all these experienced people are leaving, and then you look at why all the youngsters that are coming through don't stay, because they've been abused. It's as simple as, it's an undervalued industry that hopefully this is the start of getting it back to where it needs to be, with the most important part of the cog, because without the conveyancer, unless you completely change the buying and selling process, it's got to be there. But look at what we're paid compared to what an estate agent earns for selling a house. Look at what you paid compared to what a broker. I'm a broker, and you look at what the prop fees were when I stopped doing it, and look at what's happened to the average mortgage over the last 10 years, and therefore what's happened to the average prop fee over the last 10 years. There's been massive rises in what those guys are paid. Has conveyancing gone up? Nowhere near the level it should be. And I think this, for me, is the crux of what we need to change. Is you've got as an industry, you've got to start charging more.
Yep.
I'm trying to get, and you've got to be very careful about what you do. I'm talking to other panel managers to listen to what their issues are. And their issues, it's exactly the same what we spoke about. Some embrace tech, some don't. Those that don't may get left behind. But you're still left with junior staff who you try and get through the academies. You're paying them a pittance because you're not charging enough. So charge more for it, invest in your staff, believe in your staff, and get those guys to invest in your company too, because you absolutely need that new blood. And at the minute, it's just an ever decreasing circle. And unless you stop it and change, where is this industry really going? So you can put all the tools out there, great, but make yourself more efficient. But by God, charge more for it.
Yep.
And there are firms that are successfully doing that. They've increased their fees. They've got happy customers. They're growing it. It is
100%.
possible. I'm not saying it's easy, but it is possible.
So this for me is, from a panel manager's perspective, we can't be seen to be the ones that are keeping this price low, because I'll hold my hands up right now and say I want the price to go up for conveyancing. Absolutely needs to be. It's a joke. The difference between the two is a joke, between what a broker and an agent gets compared to what the conveyancer gets. Paul mentioned the £520 referral fee, and I know we're not going to start debating that today.
Yeah.
We get asked, and we have been asked a few times, can you increase at the maximum to £500 for us? And go, no, we don't like it. Well, if you don't give it us, we're going to go to somebody else because they'll give it us. And therefore, I'm not going to be the one that leads a campaign to cap fees, because what you've got to look at is what does that person deliver compared to somebody else that's just instructing the case. Anybody that runs a system, it's got to be dead easy to quote. It's got to be dead easy to instruct. And on sort refer, you're looking at 3 minutes tops of effort to work out which list you want to use and then to instruct it. Now, if you're earning £500 for that, and part of this debate was, risk over reward, etc., and effort. That is a joke. I won't swear, but it is. It's an utter joke. And those people need to be looking at themselves and saying, actually, do I value that thing that I'm putting that case to? Do I value the conveyancer? Do I value the industry? Or am I just going to set them up to fail like I have done for the last 3 years? And I was at Mortgage Advice Bureau's conference, and one of the brokers there, his opening word to me says, Kev, when I'm selling it, I'm telling the people that it's not going to be a great experience. I'm recommending conveyancing and telling them it's not going to be great, but it'll be the best of a bad lot. That's outrageous.
Yeah,
it really is outrageous. Let's raise the profile of conveyancing, and this is where the panel managers have got a place to play in it. Don't drive the price down. Those days are long gone. The race to the bottom. That you hear it at the minute or if you want more work, because obviously it is quieter times at the minute. You want more work, drop your price a bit. That's bonkers.
Yeah.
We all missed a trick at COVID. When we bounced back from COVID, the price of conveyancing should have trebled overnight.
Well, Kevin, I know we've got David listening in the background, and I'm sure that this can go straight into today's conveyancer and today's media, because it's an ongoing discussion. You're absolutely right. It's about keeping fees high, isn't it?
I think that this is the problem with the industry.
And sadly, we've just lost Emma again, because I was going to go to Emma, but hopefully she'll come back. But we could carry on talking for hours. I've still got another page of questions, but unfortunately our time's up. So would we like to champion our fellow colleagues for National Conveyancing Week? What would we like to say to them in a succinct sentence?
Well, I don't mind starting that. And really, it's just on the backdrop of what I've just said. I think the effort that the industry has put in over the last 3 years and sitting in a conveyancing office is incredible. You talk about stress, you talk about mental well-being. It is no wonder that people have left, because it is one of the most stressful things. Forget the most stressful thing about buying a house. It's working in a conveyancing office. So I think the effort that the people have put in over the last 3 years is unbelievable. And for me, the start of this, and to start shouting about it, at long last, and let's keep that momentum going, and let people know how passionate we are about it, and let's get it on the right path.
Well, as a non-lawyer, I'll champion that as well. I mean, I don't underestimate the hard work. I've seen conveyancers over many, many years as well, getting to their desks by 6 o'clock. I didn't envy them during the pandemic if they had an unhappy customer and that was brought into your own home, because that's essentially where you were working. So, and I've had my career thanks to many hardworking conveyancers. So, yeah, a big thank you from me. Paul?
Well, I'll be succinct. I think conveyancers need rewarding, but just recognised. And I think this is a step on the way of telling. And conveyancers don't need to know how wonderful we are. We are. Conveyancers need the public to know how wonderful we are, because only then will they say, that's what I'm paying that guy for.
Brilliant. Yeah. Thank you.
Yep, I agree. I agree, Paul, and completely. As conveyancers, we know what we've been through. We know how good we are. The reward, absolutely, raising profile and working together. As conveyancers, let's remember that we are actually all doing the same thing. We all have the same aim. Let's improve that. Let's work together.
I just think it needs to be recognised that you don't need an agent to buy or sell a house. You don't need a broker to obtain a mortgage, but you do need a conveyancer to transfer a title. So.
You do, and we used the word recognition and recognise an awful lot, and so
thank you.
Can I leave us there? Thanks to our panel, our esteemed panel, for your contributions and honesty, transparency today, and I'd like to wish all of those shortlisted at the British Conveyancing Awards tomorrow evening, the very best of luck, and I hope you have a very celebratory evening there too.
Yep, good luck.
Thanks.